Kia ora koutou. Let's make a start. Welcome everybody to this meeting of the Cromwell Community Board. Welcome to the Mayor and to council staff, press and any members of the public who may be joining us today, either online or in person. Lovely to have you with us as we go through our business for this month. At the beginning of this meeting, I'd just like to acknowledge the tragedy that unfolded last Wednesday that left our community without a 17-year-old and family without their son and their brother, and reminds us of the need to take incredible care on the roads around our district, and highlighted the fragility of our network, with the road being closed from 6:30 a.m. to after 4:30 p.m. that day. Thoughts go to the Stroud family, to Cromwell College, who will be feeling this loss immensely, as he would have been in Year 13 this year, only just left school, and the Gold Hills community is very much impacted by that, as well as the children who went through our school. Max, the youngest of them, has only just moved on to college this year. So it's a loss that's really felt throughout the community. Let's move on to our apologies. We have no apologies today. Councillor Gillespie is joining us via Teams, so he is there in the background online. We will hear his disappointing voice, I'm sure, appearing through moments in our meeting. And we have nobody for our public forum today, for the last couple being quite full. It's unusual not having quite so many members of the public in our public forum today. That moves us to page 7 of our agenda, and the confirmation of minutes of our previous meeting held on Monday, the 12th of February. Going to move in a second for those, please. That was Sarah and Cheryl. Thank you. That takes us to item 24.3.1, declarations of interest, and a reminder to members of this community board to stand aside from decision making and discussion should there be conflict of interest arise, or a perceived conflict of interest between their role on this board in making that decision. And that takes us to item number 24.3.2 on page 15, which is the Salford Street Reserve Management Plan. Warden, welcome.
Right. I think the paper's pretty well self-explanatory and explains the process. I guess a little bit of background. So we had a pretty short time frame for gathering applications for the federal funding that came out. And I guess it was overlooked that this was particular reserve management plan, unlike others, had towards to go. So we proceeded with that. It's also started to sort of review this and thought, yeah, we need to tidy this up. And I guess additionally, since recent works down at the reserve by the bike clubs, they've put in some new infrastructure there, and they've encroached into what was on the plan 21 years ago, a 30-metre beautification strip, particularly on the Orwell Street side. So we need to enter into a new lease with the clubs. And to tidy all that up, we thought we could put all this out to the public, I guess, for consultation through the Reserve Act, and we could partially review the Reserve Management Plan, those two clauses to change. Now, if we did a full review of the Reserve Management Plan, it would take a bit of part of this year, because we need to go out in the whole public process again, drop in sessions, public meetings, and come back with the draft and put the draft out again for the public. So we do have reserves that actually don't have management plans, so they've sort of taken priority over those that do have a reserve management plan, to no matter how old they are, like this one. So that is what we're proposing, that we partially review the net result for reserve management plan to remove the, or I guess to allow public toilets to go within the reserve and to reduce the 30-metre beautification strip to 15 metres into street side. So I have to answer any questions.
I've got one. What style of beautification requires 15 metres? Because at the moment there's not much beautification, there's some pine trees, right?
No, and if you measure, you're right. So
Is it from the curb or the boundary line?
yeah, it's only 1.2 metre difference, so I've not been overly fixed on whether the space is. I think when the plan was developed, and there was an earlier plan with a written plan in the back of the plan, I had some hard to determine suggestions of what the garden should be at that time. And I think that what has transpired to be over the last 20 odd years is just really grass. I mean, it gives it that sort of open space type of feeling rather than plantings right up to the footpath edge, or yeah, and I would have thought 30 metres, if it was technically would be from the reserve boundary, not the road boundary, and the reserve boundary and the road boundary are somewhere in the grass. Sure, but further in from where the footpath actually is, so it's probably a bit of discretion and it's not clear. Yeah. I think it would take a few metres would be fine, but 15 metres is we need to read. 1 or 2 metres either way, I don't think that's such a problem.
Going to cut down.
The trees, some of the trees got removed as they put in the last jump pack, and unbeknownst to us when we spoke at their last meeting. So we are having them assessed at the moment to what might need to come down and what might not need to come down. Sorry, but we will process that, and if there's and if more trees need to come down, we'll advise the board of that. We just don't have that report yet, because we're now looking just at that, we're looking at trees right through the back. That's a little bit more time. So the trees, it does mention in the plan that the trees should come out of the front wall. So we're looking to do that, and how we would fund that is the other issue. Self-funding, I mean, if some of them we have low value and some of them won't.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I think it's interesting that to note that I'm from a vague recollection, the reason that there's no ablutions provided for was because there was talk of back in the days when the review was done about the need for public toilets in that area, and the discussion of the day was around saying there's some that are close enough. Obviously the use has changed significantly, so there's a bit of a lesson for us as we do these plans into the future, is not to necessarily make them so tight that you actually don't have to go and do a review to better enable something that in the end becomes reflective of where the world's moved on to during the life of a plan. I'm assuming the second observation is that the 15 metre strip is really just to get around a current here and now problem, and as part of the full review that'll be done of this plan, that will be given some further consideration. Would that be a reasonable assumption?
Yes, that's correct. To do a lease, we really need to have be able to lease the land that we can under the reserve management plan. Otherwise, when we do the lease, we have to come in, be advertised for the lease to go. So we may as well do it all now and just tidy that up.
And the bike park are clearly wanting this matter resolved as quickly as possible as well.
Yes, that's right.
Well, so do we, because we got a toilet to put up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bob.
Yeah, I've got a question about that. It says that consultation under this Reserves Act of 1977. Can you just explain what level of consultation that is?
So we need to put out a public notice under the Reserves Act and give 2 months for people to provide feedback on that. And then submissions will be collated and brought to this board to hear them and make a decision on whether it what it wants to do with these two particular recommendations here, whether it wants to change them for affordable or not. So there's no preconceived idea that the board will make a decision on one way or the other, but they'll need to listen to the public's concerns and make an informed decision at that time, which will be about 2.5 months' time. And that's legislated on. The quite good, it was only 1 month, but
Yeah.
the act's quite old and it says 2 months. Because I suspect that everybody
You
is
took it
writing
right.
it rather than email.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any further questions, comments?
Got a
Okay.
comment.
Yeah,
It's probably worth noting that the pine trees which are in the plan to come out anyway should probably come out sooner rather than later around new works, because it's going to be way more abrasive as any of the improvements mature. So if you've got a 10-year-old track there, for example, it's going to be more of a risk that that's going to get damaged as trees get potentially bigger but older.
Yeah, so we're aware of that. So we have put some funding in the draft and plan for that. But the report on gets to see if it's urgent or it can wait till July. So that's probably should have been next year, really. So
okay. So urgent, like tomorrow
we need to get it down
or,
do some work.
Yeah.
And, otherwise we could wait till July, we'll have some funding to support that.
I have a further question, if I may. Working on the assumption that the public wanted us to put some toilets there, do you have a site yet?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we did.
right,
The first site was heavily opposed by some local residents.
Mhm.
We took that into consideration. We worked with them and the different groups, and we found an alternative site which everyone in principle is agreed to. So they signed in writing and they agreed to it. So we're pretty confident that the site should go through.
Yeah.
We just need this consultation to be done because, as you know, the middle funding, we actually bought the toilet block already.
Yeah.
So it's really waiting to be installed.
right.
Right.
That's good news.
Okay.
Enjoyment. Right, it's all ended up a bit backwards in front, hasn't
Yeah.
it? So we're going to get there, which is a really good thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's takes us back to page 15 and the recommendations A, B, C and D that we agree to undertake a partial review of the Nick Salter Street Reserve Management Plan 2000 to remove part 6.6 ablutions policy 1 not to provide public toilets at the reserve, and amend 7.3 amenity policy 1 to retain and further develop grass fortification strips at least 15 metres wide on street frontages. And agrees that consultation is undertaken using sections 41, 5 and 6 of the Reserves Act 1977, and agrees that the Cromwell Community Board considers the submissions received and recommends any changes to the Nick Salter Street Reserve Management Plan 2000 to the Council for its approval. And I have a move out and second, please. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Wally. All in favour?
Aye.
Page 90 and to item 24.3.3, the Cromwell Memorial Hall farewell ceremony. Yeah.
We've set that up for you.
We're sitting quite low down. It's a schoolboy. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is with regards to the Cromwell Memorial Hall's farewell ceremony. It's an information paper. We've had a bit of consultation with staff and some other members. We've tried to simplify this as much as possible. However, we would like to throw it out to the board to say if there was anything that we'd like to recommend to take into consideration. The date is yet determined. I think it's either the 26th or the 29th. So Friday the 26th, straight up to NZ, Monday the 29th. And it's just going to be dependent on UV availability because they're quite busy on NZ Day. So just getting around and coming to do the blessing on one of those mornings. Take the rest of the papers reading. Any questions?
We find out the data, we need to advertise.
We just waiting for you to confirm.
Been in conversation with both who, the CEO, who's been in touch with the various group projects. And Elizabeth Moiraki won't be in attendance, but she's chasing up pretty much to get a response. So late last week I hadn't met her, and I will chase her again this week. But yeah, totally take on board. We need to advertise it, and she's aware of that as well. Yep.
That'd be really 3 weeks.
Yeah, that is only really 3 weeks away.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I just make the observation that that intention is to invite ex-mayors, and I'm assuming that's the ex-mayors of the Cromwell Borough Council. And I don't want to rain on His Worship's parade, but I do think that the speeches on the day would come from the chair of the community board and another ex-Cromwell dignitary, previous mayor. I'm not quite sure there's a function for the district council in this at this stage. Just
couldn't be happier, Neil, with that suggestion.
I don't take it personally, Your Worship, but I just think it's there's given the Cromwell Memorial Hall, there's probably someone out there in the community that's probably got a very long association that we might be thinking, and if it's not our oldest living mayor as an example, there's probably someone in that category I think that we can look at. But I'm sure we can, as the program is finalised, I'm sure that'll be worked through by those that are doing it.
You can take it into consideration.
I think that's appropriate actually, and the oldest remaining mayor of Cromwell would probably be the first. Yeah, I'm more than happy with that.
So as soon as we get confirmation, we will adjust it.
Okay, if Manawatu partners can't do it, would we? I do think a padre, or I don't know how you do and mark things here in Cromwell, given this history. But
He can't come.
but typically it would be marked with a blessing and that sort of stuff. So it's just something I don't know who the local rich or but it shouldn't be something, unless we're all agnostic.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I've done that kind of room.
We'll act on that. Okay.
And if it did come to that, given it's a memorial hall, then probably the RSA might have a suggestion as to someone that they think that could fill that bill.
Yeah.
Probably someone who might be speaking on the 25th, dare I say.
On the exit day. So that's fine. I can follow up with Dennis Ryan about that and see if you can suggestion.
I'll just make a suggestion to Louise that she can check in with to see if they're available. And if they have the permission of Ngāi to speak on behalf on that day. Just need to make sure we tick those boxes correctly.
Cool.
Cool. That takes us back to, unless there's any further questions, sorry.
I was just sorry. What? Communication. So we've pretty much missed the deadlines. Today's last day. So not being able to make those now gives us an extra week to go get.
But not about it.
So we need material done by basically Monday, Tuesday deadline.
Anything further?
Just do it.
Right. Cool. So that takes us back to page 90 and the recommendation that we receive the report. Any seconder, please. Thanks, Mary. Thanks, Sarah. That takes us now to all in favour, sorry. That takes us to item 24.3.4 on page 92, which is the financial report for the period ending this definitely free. Donna, or Saskia.
So take the paper is being read. The financial report for 31st of December 2023 is an unfavorable operating variance of $725,000 against the revised budgets. Revenue has an unfavourable variance of 4.3 million. Driving this variance is the budgeted land sales from subdivisions of about 5.2 million. Without this budgeted income, there would be a favourable operating income of $134,000. Internal interest continues to be favourable. This is due to the reserves balance being higher, and the market interest rates being applied to those. The expenditure has a favourable variance of $3.5 million. The cost of land sales driving that as well, contributing about 3.3 million. Without that included in the budget, there would be a favourable variance of $213,000. Areas that are above budget include the rates expense, internal interest expense and staff costs. The rates expense will finish the end of the financial year higher than budget, and we've made this adjustment for the annual plan forward. So that's everyone. Capital expenditure has a real variance of 11 million. As you know, this is mainly the town centre and the Cromwell. Work has been carried out to move those as part of the Cromwell Community Board and Council resolutions passed in February.
Questions, people?
The only observation I've got is that I'm assuming that the grant to the golf club will actually come out of the specific reserve account for the Cromwell Golf Club that's funded from their rentals.
Yes, that would be correct. There has been a transfer done through the reserve accounts, which won't show in these reports.
Yeah, cool.
Else of note that people have noted?
So the reserve fund, so the Cromwell Board has 26 million. Positive.
Surplus.
And the district-wide reserves are 24 million deficit. Someone just explained in really, really simple terms, like in terms of that districtisation topic. What would happen there? So we just started that work now. So just what rationale will do the modelling for us. So what our plan is for that districtisation piece of work is to get an initial model, because it's a very good question, and we'll need to model that all through and give up options. Is that we have an initial discussion with council on in May at a workshop to see that we're on the right track, and then we're going to come to the community board rounds with it after that. So particularly for Cromwell, I think that's probably the time where we can really give you some answers on that when we've done the modelling. So yes, very good question, and we will come to you with that mid-year.
Do we have a timescale on that?
It'll be the following June, July. June. So it'll be the next community board following the May council meeting. So I've got that handy with the Cromwell members. We did look at it, and I think they've got all in June. Yeah, so it'll be your June meeting. Have a discussion. You guys on that. Thank you.
Would I be right to assume that part of that will include, with the work that Rationale and the council work to be done by the councillors, will be looking at the revenue and financing policy?
Yes, that will all need to be.
Yeah.
So that, however, would get changed as part of the LTP. So yes, as part of the work, we'll definitely look at the impacts of that. And if the council agree, and then the community comes back and once it's gone through the special consultative procedure, what would happen then is that if it was to be changed, that would happen in the LTP, and the revenue and financing policy would need to be changed. But we can definitely start signaling what those changes would be.
I just assume that the revenue and financing policy would actually be the starting point, because that's what dictates where stuff is funded from and how it's funded. And that shows whether it's a ward funded issue, district funded, or whatever. So I would have thought that'd be the starting point.
But
Yes.
Joe, that is all part of the process, reviewing those particular policies. the digitisation discussion and you know, depending on what the decision that comes out at the end of that, might be no change to anything.
Yeah.
Or there might be change to something, whatever that change is, that will then have to be weaved into the LTP at the starting point, and our respective revenue and financing policy will need to be amended to reflect that, and then that will all be then have to be consulted on.
Yeah.
It's part of the LTP process.
Any further comment there, Neil?
Oh, no, I'll continue the conversation another day.
Okay.
I think that is the base document, so I would have thought we'd be starting there in the first instance, be part of the process, but I'm sure it'll come out in the wash.
Yes, and definitely when we had the workshop with council in May, Neil, I think that the process will become a lot clearer and we'll work through it then. Yeah.
Everybody happy? Go back to page 92. And the recommendation that the report be received. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Bob. All in favour?
Right.
That takes us to page 97 and item 24.3.5, which is the annual plan, budget and fees and charges schedule. And we are being joined online by Vivuti.
Super unhelpful mic not being on. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and all members. Thank you for having me.
Welcome.
So just very quickly, just as an outline, some of you might have heard me say this before, that the backdrop of preparation of budgets for council as well as all wards is the fact that there is cost increases in a lot of areas of council services, actually all areas. You've heard of some of the prominent ones like energy and fuel, all of those areas, contract costs. So that's the backdrop, and you're seeing the impact on ward rates as well. So there's an increase for 24-25 annual plan of 19.9% or 716,000. The paper outlines the reasons where the movements have been. There is, I suppose there's just, because it's a big item, I just point that out. In terms of, well, as you know, we are still preparing and finalizing the numbers. So what's in front of you in this report weren't the final numbers. They were, we made some changes since the council workshop on the 20th of March. One of the items in here is what's in there in terms of capital costs for the Cromwell Town Centre project. I would welcome a discussion amongst the committee of what you want to do with the numbers that are in there. There was a council decision around moving to the Memorial Hall project first. So the town centre numbers that are still sitting in there in the report in front of you is 6.5 million for current year revised budget, and that is having, if we move that out, has been alluded to in the report, to a discussion for the long-term plan, then that will have an impact of reducing rates for the Cromwell ward. And I'm happy to take questions, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, before we throw it open for questions, just coming out of the Vincent Community Board meeting this morning in relation to Resolution C, what they had picked up on the 50 swims pass was more expensive, both adult and child, than getting 225 swims. But what that board resolved this morning is to reduce the adult 50 swims to 350 and the child to 180. So just wanted to let the board be aware of that change this morning, if you wish to be consistent with BCB.
I think that the full charges being consistent is would be the best way to go. So we'll take that advice. It does certainly make sense that the 50 swim pass should be at a slightly lower rate than the 25 pass.
So
Has everybody been able to get into their fees and charges document now? Yeah.
So my question is, with that small change, did the Vincent board accept?
Yes, that made it. So that was the amount we worked it out that the VCB will be an acceptable charge for 50 swims.
Just a minor technicality on waste oil. Having spent $90 getting rid of my lot recently. A kilo is not a litre, so kilo/litre should not be referred to in that way. It's like 14% out or something. It's just honestly policy on the volume you turn up with it today, but it is good to see that the first 20 litres is free, because that's, if I interpret that right, the first 20 litres free is going to promote people to get rid of it responsibly. But yeah, I do ask that you reference kgs being the same as litres.
Thank you. We will to the infrastructure manager, and then if agreed, we'll upgrade that and the change with waste being a district charge. We will take it up to the 24th, so the council's about a table for the wire after that. Okay, thank you.
I thought I saw with clean fill as well, it was charged by the cubic metre, but it's probably going over the weighbridge, which is not going with cubes.
Thank you. We'll check in.
The other things that people have noticed.
Yeah, just a couple of things from me. One's on Appendix 4, which is the sample rates, and I just interested to see that in the Bannockburn example, there's 2 Bannockburn residences, one with a capital value of 1 million, one with 1.6, and yet the differences in the rates increases is 20% and 36%. I'm not quite. Something just says that doesn't sound right. It should be more, I think, a relative sort of scale given how the rates work, but maybe not. But I would have thought, as you got probably, yeah, I'm surprised it's so much, but just someone could check to make sure that is the right track would be useful. And back to what was said about the Cromwell Town Centre project, my understanding is that when we did the resolution for the hall, was that the funding that we were going to use for the town centre from the board and was on the LTP has now been effectively transferred into the hall project. So I thought we'd already decided that we'll be reconsulting on the town centre funding, and I would have expected that would have all just been transferred out into next year as part of the Memorial Hall funding. Or have I missed something or misunderstood something?
Louise, did you want to
Yes,
comment on that? Yeah.
but my understanding of the meeting was that because the rates impact that was modelled for the 21-31 LTP for the whole Cromwell Master Plan projects was effectively taken up by the hall, then the town centre would go into the LTP for consultation. I don't think it's that we were transferring the CapEx against the hall, because it's more than that. If you understand what I mean, like we had for the town centre, for the hall we had 31 million, for the town centre we had a total of 71 million. I don't think the intention is to transfer that all to the hall. I think the intention is that we move the town centre into the long-term plan, which would probably mean that these budgets are zeroed out at this point.
Yeah, that would make sense to me. The budget should be the budget for the town centre should. The budget for the town centre should be zeroed out, but I did think that from the Cromwell ward funding, that some of the funding that was going into the town centre project would be transferred to the Memorial Hall, because it wasn't land sales or other.
Yeah, so initially the shortfall for the hall is to be debt, which will be repaid in 5 years.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
Land sale. So I think what was modelled in the long-term plan, and Vivian might correct me here, but while I was in there, it would have been debt funded anyway. So taking it out will alleviate that impact on rates.
Yeah, well, there is a, I think I've mentioned this before, there is some amount of money sitting in current year forecast for town centre. So if we move that out, that is going to have an impact on your interest costs in there. So we can do that. Just want to make sure, because I think that is tied to some land sales, isn't it, Louise?
I think so. I can't exactly comment on the position, at least I think so. And also for a further report coming up, we do propose to do some work to get us to the point where we can consult through the long-term plan. So there will be an OPEX budget that needs to stay in there should the board/council agree on that. But we can be clearer about that then. So yeah, the big amount will be zeroed out, except for a level of OPEX to continue the work on the town centre to get it into the long-term plan.
I guess what we'll do is we'll take it all out here, and it might go back in the closed meeting item. Is that how it would work?
Yep, I guess so. That's probably the easiest way. Yeah.
So that would be my understanding, is that the capital project is not going to happen in the next financial year in the town centre. So it's an LTP discussion. So we'd be taking the big numbers out, which would be at this stage would be all of it. And if we have to put some back in for something else that's going to be discussed in another agenda item, then we do that as part of that.
Yeah, okay, everybody happy with that? Does that need to be noted somewhere?
I think it might be good to get a resolution on that this year and do the official report that the clarification sort and clarified.
Is there further discussion on fees and charges? Yes, go ahead.
Do you mind just explaining what the $1 per entry fee to swim before or after lesson means?
So when we have it listed, so it's considered as coming from a lesson. Then those of the previous general review of how this came about, then must go this from without paying, and it wasn't part of the issue. So if they pay the dollar, it's from either before or after the distance.
And but that dollar is just tacked on to the cost of the lesson, isn't it?
Yeah, like it's $10, I think.
Yeah, it was just to tidy up that anomaly. It's having quite extended stuff before. Yeah.
As long as it's but not expensive.
Yeah. Just waiting while Sarah pulls up the resolution there. Are there any further things on the fees and charges? Because it is quite a lot.
There's just technicality, nothing major. There's an item in there for extending the irrigation on the reserve out the front of the Golden Gate Lodge. But we don't call it that anymore. It'd fit on one line if you just called it the gate.
Okay.
Another question.
Been around that 5 years.
What's the slot called?
Well, no, the whole thing.
What
What's
site's called?
All sorts of stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Sarah, just popping that up so we can see it. So most of your recommendations are on page 97, and there's been an additional part put to B, is that right?
B and D.
B and D. Okay, so we now read on page 97 that the Cromwell Community Board receives the report and accepts the level of significance, agrees to the draft Cromwell Ward 24-25 annual plan budget and recommends to Council for inclusion in the 2024-25 annual plan. And BI agrees that the budgets for the Cromwell Town Centre project be zeroed for 2024-2025. Then we go to C.
Madam Chair, sorry. Yeah. Can I just, that B1,
yeah,
it means that the, oh, sorry, just, agrees that the budgets for the Cromwell Town Centre project be zeroed for 2023-24 forecast as well as 24-25 annual plan. I am particularly talking about the forecast in current year. That's the 6.5 million. Yeah.
And do we want to add in there, Madam Chair, and be reconsidered as part of the long-term plan?
I'm glad you suggested it because I was about to.
Yeah.
Beat you to it.
Budgets will be there.
And just that needs clarifying further. Agrees that the budget for the Cromwell Town Centre project be zeroed for the 23-24 forecast and the 24-25 annual plan and be reconsidered for the long-term plan.
And the budgets for the project be reconsidered. Right, because we can't reconsider forecasts that are gone, so if you just add them here, and the budgets for this project be reconsidered. Yeah. Yeah, I don't read that. Yeah, and the budgets for this project.
Yeah, I can just, just a point of clarification, we do need an operational budget this year and in the annual plan to progress this work, because we've got
a contract in place.
We've got, and people working on it now. Are you happy for us to address that through the next item? It just seems like
if we zero it completely, yes, zero pay our bills. Yeah,
but not enough money to pay the district, and then picking it up again.
Messy team.
Yeah,
Do we want to say? Are you going? Sorry.
I was just saying, unfortunately, in a situation where you can't make a decision on what you haven't discussed yet, so you can't just put in there on the off chance. Seems messy, I know, but yeah, I think you just have to zero it out and put it back in when you do the next item.
Yeah. Okay. Comfortable with that, people?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I'm going to read it to you again. It reads that the budgets for the Cromwell Town Centre project be zeroed for the 23-24 and forecast. There's an extra and popped itself in there. First one you did. Top line next to 23.
Yeah.
Right. The 2023-2024 forecast and the 24-25 annual plan and the budgets for this project be considered for the long-term plan. Then we go to C, agrees to accept the increase in pool charges according to the 24-25 fees and charges schedule, subject to the Vincent Community Board agreeing to this increase to ensure consistency in charging.
That's already been.
But that's something big as well. Yeah.
So,
Agrees to accept the Cromwell Board 24-25 fees and charges schedule and recommend to Council for inclusion in the 24-25 annual plan with the following amendments. I, that the cost for 50 swims for an adult is $315 and the cost for 50 swims for a child is $180, which is in line with the Vincent.
Yeah.
Right. Are we happy with the wording of those? Do I have a mover and a seconder?
All right.
Thank you. You moved it, thanks. Bob seconded it. All in favour?
Wasn't sure what was happening. It was a bit quiet.
Everybody just had a wee snooze for a moment. It's all good. It's back in. Okay. Thank you. And that takes us to item 24.3.6 and the Mayor's report. Over to you, Tim.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I attended Waitangi Day to the Araha Marae Club, great event, alongside Peter. Highlight for me was fluking having morning tea with Tatsapia League and one of Te Waipounamu's great leaders. Also met and had a yarn with Speaker of the House, Julie Brownlee, and Minister of Rural Communities, Mark Patterson. Like many things, the value of attendance at things such as that is often what happens
around the fringes or in the smoker room as opposed to actually at the meeting itself. The next day we had a full Otago South and Combined Mayoral Forum and Te Putaia meeting with EU leaders. The next day that was at the beautiful Murihiku marae just outside of Invercargill. Similarly useful and included hearing from the newly elected Kaiwhaka Haere, or the chairman of Te Ruraka Ngāi Tahu, Joseph Tipper. He's a compelling speaker. I was chosen by LGNZ to be one of 2 presenters on the 13th of February at Parliament to the new and some not so new National Party MPs on the subject of localism. It was a pretty hectic time actually, because they had a lot of questions and comments, not just on localism, but local government in general. And of course, they're all, you don't go to Parliament without having some smarts about you. So it was interesting to be fronting that, but a useful thing to do because it was able to give across a rural perspective on what goes on at a local government level. And I think in all things parliamentary, they can often get captured by the big cities rather than what's happening in the country. I sit as LGNZ National Council rep, and it was in that role that I joined President Mayor Sam Broughton and CEO Susan Freeman Green on a trip around most of Zone 6. Zone 6, if you don't know, is the LGNZ zone, which is all the councils south of the Waitaki, including Waitaki. So we met with mayors and chairs and councillors at QLDC, CODC, DCC, ORC, Clutha, Gore, Invercargill and Environment Southland in 2 days. It was a great opportunity to hear from councillors from across the south, and basically they're all in the same difficult circumstances that they're in. First in March, I attended an LGNZ National Council Conference meeting, National Council meeting. As part of that, it was decided to make Apona, which is the LGNZ Training and Education tool, part of the membership for the next year. It's the only specialised New Zealand local government training and education tool. It's got a huge amount of information, and I look forward to it. We haven't subscribed to it, but I do look forward to it being available to all members from I guess the 1st of July, because a lot of them answer the questions that you don't know who to ask. It has great modules in it that you can just refresh or renew knowledge. It's a really good thing. I was back in Parliament on the 20th of February. I've sort of been there a bit lately, alongside Mayor Glynn from QLDC and 3 locally based MPs for a meeting with Health Minister Dr. Shane Reti. We're trying to get better healthcare in the Central Lakes region into the long term. Dr. Reti acknowledged the need. The need is quite obvious. Around 70% of the people in New Zealand not serviced by a fully serviced hospital live in inland Otago. And that's just counting our normally resident population. So if you look at over Christmas time, when we're full of visitors and people in their holiday homes and so forth, we, between QLDC and CODC, we have the same population as Hamilton City. We're still 2 hours from the nearest full hospital. So that's the same as Hamilton City having to travel to a half an hour further north of Middlemore for their hospital care, which is just unsustainable. This is going to be a long-term project, but you've got to start somewhere. That same day when I wasn't there, but I managed to zoom in for a fair bit of it, council met, and amongst the business that day was the representation review, which I'm sure you're familiar with. It's how we do governance. The reviews must happen at least every 6 years. There are a number of things included in that, which included dropping, no, that's not correct, included dropping the number of Vincent councillors from 5 to 4. That's actually to take into account the population growth in Cromwell, because you've got to have a roughly even number. You've got to be within plus or minus 10% between our 2 big wards. So that was how that was met, rather than adding a councillor to Cromwell. And that was in line with the public consultation. And we'll also be putting in the proposal, which is out for consultation until the 28th of February, to reduce the number of councillors sitting on the CCB and the BCB from the current 3 to 1. Alongside Peter and Vincent, Chair and Councillor Tamer Ali, I attended the Zone 5 and 6, basically the South Island conference in Christchurch 2 weeks ago. First and foremost, congratulations must go to Tamer for being elected the Chair of Zone 6. That's not very many councillors become chairs of the zone. You're leading the leaders, so it was great to see her win the election for that role and the aplomb with which she handled it. Guest speakers at that meeting included Chris Bishop, Minister Chris Bishop, I should say, Minister Mark Patterson, Justin Teeper, who I mentioned earlier, and we had dinner with local government Minister Simeon Brown, amongst a lot of other speakers. It was a very worthwhile conference, actually. We've been fortunate to get funding through the Mayor's Task Force for Job Programs. It's a nationwide partnership between LGNZ and the Ministry of Social Development and focuses on getting young people into sustainable employment. So if you know of any needs which are not in education and employment or training in the community, which can do with the lift up into the workforce, let me know. We've got a coordination, and it can be mentoring, it can be buying them the boots that they need to go to that job that they wouldn't be able to go to otherwise, or maybe getting a restrictive driver's license, things such as that. And I had the pleasure of welcoming the many delegates. It was fairly full over at the conference centre at the gate to the Sustainable Trails Conference. Great feedback from the event, and also attended the last Cromwell, not the last, but the most recent Cromwell Business Breakfast at the Black Rabbit. The next event's tomorrow at 7:30. Happy to take any questions, Madam Chair.
Questions?
Can I say the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs, and that I've been listening to conversations through school from a similar but slightly different angle with the COYIP and their program. How closely are they
Different
linked?
different age groups, but
But obviously there's a similarity in what's trying to happen with those different age groups, isn't there?
Yeah, so we have a what's the title of it? Is it an advisory board or something like that that sits over the top? And I can't remember her name, but the deputy principal of college, Sarah is part of that. So we just sit around with the coordinator and go, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? You talk to them, you talk to them.
Right.
And she was magnificent at the last meeting, just for making all those things as well.
And does that include Cromwell, which I know Fran Dustin, who used to be at the hangout there, she's now with Cromwell. I've heard lots of similar conversations. I don't know how well linked they are. Like, is it
certainly
Craig in the Pikes
the coordinators have talks with Fran. I'm sure.
Right.
I'm sure I heard that mentioned somewhere. Now.
Okay, so all those entities are linked, because it seems like a really big area to get into.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of work to do, but I hate to see things being done.
Don't want to be duplicated.
So, yeah.
And I think this one's an older age group. There might be but
there's definitely a segue from one. And so, and I know Sarah does a lot of work through school with the younger ones in the co-ops, the year 11s, and that goes through, there's a.
It starts when they see these different kids. So
Right.
it depends on age, and it starts to end.
And it's across the two schools, I've just been here anecdotally, not but just a lot about programs. They all sound similar in part, different in part, but how they work together. Yeah, cool. So that's what they are.
Not from over each other.
Yeah. And they're helping each other as well, I guess, because I know I met with Fran when she took the role over with Comco. And I think she was a little frustrated that there wasn't more information. I had a conversation with Nick, got some information together, and it was really good, but it's just about getting those groups all together to work, because these kids are going through those stages. We need to be capturing those kids. I saw a post on Facebook the day, a boy that's coming down here that's 17. He's got school up in Canterbury. He's moving down here to look for a job. He's got a job. He's looking for employment, looking for housing. And there's people on Facebook advising him he can get help from here and help from there. He's come from where he might have had that school support or the leaving school support to a town he knows no one. And it's just, we had to put on reading that he's filed for a job, and who knows what the whole story is. But, there's kids here not just coming from family units within our town. There are people moving here with no support.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite a big group of people. We need to be aware that we keep those people, we grow the workforce of the future, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. You get one of these young ones, give them that lift up into the workforce that they may not be getting from around them.
Yeah.
You change lives.
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
It's a wonderful spot to be in.
And we're looking for work. We need workers left, right, and centre.
Oh yeah.
What better place to get them from those pools of people who don't necessarily know where to head? There's some really amazing programs here. I think that Stop the School Too and Compo and Code and all of those things are incredible for our youth. Thanks.
Can I have a moment in a second for thanks, Wally, thanks, Cheryl, all in favour. It's been a fairly tumultuous start to the year. I think for the Cromwell Community Board, we know that we've had a lot of community interest and community feeling and behind items that have come in front of us, and a lot of our time and focus and attention of this board has been on that, and certainly for me as well over the first part of this year, and then needed to slide back into my focus being on my small community. So for the beginning of this year, since our previous meeting, I've been contacted by various members of the community over some things that they would like to see. So I have had somebody asking about heliports for emergency helicopters at the Cromwell Airport, and I've passed that on. People who may know more about things like that than I do. And I did have the Cromwell Bike Park people contacting me about toilets and leases, and so it's good to have an update on where we're at with that, because obviously those are things that our community would like to see continually progressing. And as we said when Gordy presented to us before, that things have sort of ended up a bit backwards and forwards rather than straight line for that. Our board has worked together really hard to make sure we've got some shared understandings and some shared direction around what happens next in terms of delegations. And we know that we've still got some questions that we have that we will forward again to be answered for us. And to that end, I attended the CODC meeting on the 28th of February and presented on behalf of the community. On the 29th of February, I attended a wonderful ceremony at the Cromwell Early Learning Centre, where they had a Namu that had been gifted to them. Blessed. If you haven't been down to Cromwell Early Learning Centre and been in their environment, looked at the fabulous Laharoa that they have constructed and looked at what Lisa's got going on down there, it's well worth a visit. She's very welcoming, and the children are also very welcoming. But it was a really lovely event attended by Fetu Cormac from the Māori Achievement Collaborative and Anaru Morgan, and as well as the three principals in Cromwell. And other than that, I have been, I went to the funding clinic in Cromwell on March the 6th, which I pretty much had my school hat on, but of course you always end up having a community hat on, a surgery out in the community at those sorts of things. So I did have Paula come and have a chat with me. But it's great that those funding organisations do get together, including Rebecca there representing the CODC, to talk about the sorts of grants that are available for community projects in our town. And I think we're very lucky. We are quite well served by grant organisations who support our community development projects. And that's me. My report. And members' reports, and Mary, we will start with you today.
For options for short-term accommodation in Cromwell, to discuss and see options with them. From similar veins, attended both the Open Institute of New Zealand and even discussing the pasture bill and the New Zealand Institute seminars data and pasture bill. There's just possible options for if a submission to be made to ensure things like short-term accommodation is included, and that would be benefit this actually. And would definitely be the purpose of the for purposes of that was drafted. And then 31st of March attended the these two accounts. Very good. Here we go.
Cheryl. I, on the day of our last community board briefing, we approved up the community house meeting straight afterwards. That was on 13th, so that was the 21st of February. We actually, the Cromwell Community House had organised a poll when we moved to play with the locals. They were very welcoming, and it was really great. It was a lot of fun, actually. Great to be held down there. It's this lovely day with food, wine. It's just, yeah, it was really cool. Then we had, obviously there was the council meeting that we just mentioned that was on the 28th. Then on the 11th of the 3rd, I was attended the Lake Hawea and wastewater and the Wanaka wastewater plants And that was really fascinating. Pretty much the Lake Hawea one is, or Hawea Flats one is actually at capacity now, and it was looking at how we can deal with the nitrogen issue that we've got here in Cromwell and how they use it. That's what they do there. And it was really interesting. And then we were lucky enough to go to the Wanaka wastewater, which had just recently been opened, their upgrade, and it was fascinating. You can see it's a lot of money, costs a lot of money. But well used. That was a very informative. That was on the 11th. And on the 20th, we had another council meeting. There was Tim has already covered off the representation, pre-representation review. Then there was paper on the proposed merger of the Minneopolis irrigation company, which is future proofing, I think, more than anything else. There was a report consider the changes to the 2025 long-term plan and the 2024-25 annual plan and the hearings process. And so we had an update on the options that came from the, we've got the compliance issue with Cromwell wastewater and nitrogen. So that came across the table with a Labour decision. Yes, they would go with the same product that we have used. And then, so the compliance, wastewater compliance updates are now the monthly, well, it's so often now, not a lot changes. So, and also the Eden Hall collection will be housed down for the next 2 years at the Early Steppers Museum. And then I attended a lot of Full Bridge of the Wanaka. First time I've ever been. And it was really, really good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was, I definitely go again.
Because it's been such a long absence from the last event, isn't it?
Oh, yes, lovely day. Well behaved, crowd. Everybody thoroughly enjoyed themselves. It was just a fantastic day, and I didn't want to go.
Really wants to go. Better than a vacuum.
Last night, the first Christmas present was the one that was actually cancelled because of COVID. So yeah, I thought I dodged a bullet, but anyway, no. And I'm really pleased that I got that Christmas present because I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I get Christmas presents like that too.
Yeah.
Take it to the Warriors.
Yeah. No.
Just fine.
You're as well, but so yeah, no, it was really, really good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Everybody should go. It's fabulous.
Well,
Okay. So I attended the Once Upon a Hill that Scott Base hosted, where Ord Road are obviously really good band, but it's quite notable that our high school band is really good as well. Went to the Wanaka A&P show, and I submitted on our post delegations at council meeting in February. I also been contacted about the emergency helipad. At first, I was wondering what the need was for it when the helicopter quite happily landed next to my house one night. But this helipad's going to be able to be landed in blind, basically in fog. If all goes ahead as proposed. Fog's the big one, but there's safe ways and unsafe ways about getting delicate patients into choppers. So if there's something predictable they can use to do that, then well worth exploring. I went to the funding park as well as Anna. Tomorrow I should be attending a hearing on speed limits. Went to the Highlands Easter egg hunt briefly before we were in golf on the weekend. Went to Warbirds over Wanaka on the Friday, so not the actual show, the breakfast day. And I guess looking forward to next year, there's news that Wheels at Wanaka is going to have its last year next year. So I guess that's a little bit notable for the town because it does, Cromwell will get some benefit out of bringing that many people into the district. But yeah, that'll be my report, John.
Molly, Neil,
Not a lot to report. Cheryl's picked up on the council stuff that happened. Yeah, I've probably been keeping pretty bit of a low profile, been out of town quite a bit for the last 6 weeks. So, and then a good dose of COVID alongside it all curtailed a few things. So nothing additional to add to what's already been said.
Sarah.
Wow. Where haven't I been? Along with the councillors and ELT team, and so I went down to Karitana Mariah for an overnight visit, which is by Rebecca. Learned an awful lot about her and her family, which is a really cool experience. Really grateful for elected members to be included in that. Just go down together, apart from the snoring from the ELT this, which could be just next time. But really cool place to go and to learn a bit more about local, or as local as it gets, I guess. Right. So yeah, I'm really thankful for the opportunity to be able to do that. It's athletics season, so I've been to many athletics days and competitions at various levels at school. Zones athletics held in Alex on the 18th of March was amazing. All the schools that came through together. Unfortunately, last week they had to cancel the Central Otago wide competition since we don't have an indoor venue. And the weather was appallingly unseasonal. So it's a real shame for the kids that didn't get that opportunity. They were very excited to be there, but great that we got the zones going. Really strong sporting environment around here. So it's great that those kids get to compete against each other being rural. Seeing the kids coming from so far away. I attended the parents talk that the ASK program runs in schools, which is very generously supported by Highlands. They've been coming through for several years, so I make a point of going to the parents evening there. This one was about our kids using the social media, but interestingly, the parents talk was on how our behaviour around devices impacts on what they see and what they do, and I certainly had some takeaways from that. So those things are good, not just to hear what your kids are being told, but for us to actually have a way think. I think there's an awful lot there, and it's quite confronting when you listen with open ears. But yeah, very pleased to be there. And I have been in conversation with Jackie Lambert from Otago Emergency Management. There's a meeting tomorrow night here in Cromwell at the Presbyterian Church at 7 p.m, I believe. 6:30. I'm late. I'm probably going to be there at 6:30. Looking to get some kind of community support for mobilising a team of people to be involved should, say when, not if, the big one hits us. I think we've got a little bit lax in the last few years, and it's a good community reminder, but I would urge anybody that is available to go to attend tomorrow. You don't necessarily have to put your hand up to do something, but just to be aware, because when it happens, it is not the time for us to be saying, oh, I wonder if there's anybody in my streets, neighbourhoods, town who can help me here, because my cell phone's gone out and my children are at school and I'm at work and I don't know what to do. So I'll be going. Lots of people should go. Hope to see you all there.
Sarah, Bob, definitely.
Yep.
6:30. Thank you, Rick, at 6:30.
Yeah, on Tuesday the 13th of February, I attended the monthly meeting of the Cromwell and Districts Promotions Group, which was basically just a planning meeting for some of the events that they've got coming up. It's a bit of a quiet time for them at the moment, but the main event that they're planning for is the annual quiz, which is hosted by Peter Williams, which is due to be held in May. Surprised nobody else mentioned this. On Thursday, the 22nd of February, I attended the detailed design workshop here at the,
Such a
no, that's right. which was absolutely fascinating and obviously well worthwhile and so on. And on Wednesday, the 28th of February, I spoke at the public forum, part of the full council meeting in Alexandra on the subject of the proposed change in delegations for community boards. Very interesting meeting with impassioned pleas from members of the public, particularly from Cromwell. I should add that before and after that meeting, I've had dozens of conversations face-to-face, by telephone and via messages in support of the Cromwell Community Board's position. On Tuesday, the 12th of March, I attended another meeting of the Cromwell and Districts Promotions Group, and I've a lot to report from that. On Wednesday, the 13th of March, I attended a talk at the Clyde Museum, and it was a full house actually, entitled Artifacts Discovered During the Construction of the Dunstan Trail, which was an absolutely fascinating talk. And that was apparently repeated in Bannockburn on the 19th. I went to the one at Clyde. The other thing I would say, I haven't made a note of the date actually, but early in March, I attended a committee meeting of the Cromwell Football Club, who this year are going to be running 2 senior teams. Last year, they only had 1. And this year, for the first time, they're going to be running a ladies' team as well, which is quite interesting. Finally, I've had quite a lot of conversations, and I'm continually being asked about pedestrian safety in the town centre, and particularly with regard to providing pedestrian crossings so that people can actually get from, for example, the retirement village to the centre, from Newell to the town centre. And I've been talking to the roading team about that. A little bit disappointed that there's no progress. That's my report.
Can I just add to that last comment of Bob's, please? Because that's something that's been communication by some concerned people with our council team for some time now. That goes back to the latter part of last year that I was involved in, forwarded some emails on. So yeah, like Bob, I'm a bit concerned that things aren't progressing there, or is it a case of the responses that have been given and not being taken as being appropriate? Because something should happen tomorrow.
Anyone here who can that will help us understand that?
I think there will be later.
Yes, I mean, I know it has been brought up before, and we have had communication from people, particularly at the retirement village, concerned about safe progress across.
I understand. I'm sorry. I understand that there was an accident where a young man actually was knocked over by a car on playing a drive a few days ago. Fortunately, he didn't. Sorry?
It's a couple of weeks ago now.
A couple of weeks ago, probably, yeah. Fortunately, he didn't sustain any serious injuries, but it is a problem.
So if I could comment, Madam Chair, we I can't comment specifically in relation to your comments, Bob, but we are definitely progressing a piece of work around roundabouts and traffic safety and pedestrians as part of, we pulled it into the town centre work, so that, and that includes parking, so that we are progressing this in an integrated way. It is actually in the design stage now, and you understand that it's quite important and urgent.
Yeah.
Thank you for that update. I have a motion and a second for members' reports, please. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Sarah. All in favour? Aye. Thank you. Righty ho. That takes us to page 112 and the status.
I've just got one comment. I noted that there was sorry, on page 118. There's a comment about the cemetery, and I noticed that in the LTP discussion earlier, it was said that there was going to be a shelter installed at the Cromwell Cemetery.
A wooden structure of some description, no?
Yeah. Should that not be in the status report?
Extension of the cemetery, and there is waiting on title from sale of some land off that orchard side. Right. And a little bit of a sort of ban on the business park side as well. Once that goes through, then that'll be designated. It'll be fit for the cemetery. And then part of the long-term plan is, I don't think it's going to be handed balance. Which there is part of it is redeveloping or developing that site for expansion on the cemetery, because the current cemetery alone doesn't look at it as pretty well full. So we now need to get on with that. So that might be just a wrong title along with the plans for opportunity there.
Okay.
Might be a design or concept that is very close on and some sort of design company.
Okay, okay.
Anything else that you've noted on that? Those reports, Sarah?
Just the first item, the delegations to community boards, and that just says on hold as of the 14th of March, and further action will happen after districtisation. Based on what you said before with the previous action memo sent to staff, is there scope for including our request for response to, which kind of relates to the first point, action memo sent to staff there? Does that tie into that enough to be included in that?
What was in the action memo?
That's a good question to start with. But
The action memo was for the meetings, so that was in
true.
January 2024.
So I just clarify, the action memo goes to the staff member, and it's the resolution that you pass and basically what we need to do to follow up on it. So that's what that action is.
so then we're into further action will happen after, and that's where we're on hold. But are we still waiting? You think we're waiting for a response to some of the questions that were in?
I know Ollie's asked some further questions as well, but we did have some items that we.
Does any of that need to be tied into here to be reported? Is my question.
At the right place to put it. It is in relation to our statement of position.
On hold is contrary to what we would expect as a board, right?
Yeah.
It's through that, it's obviously due to come back to council before Christmas is the direction. So that's the council resolution. I can't remember the exact wording, but it's to be brought back to council this side of Christmas. And the districtisation discussion will be one of the precursors to the litigation discussion.
Prior to that, even there's some information that can be provided that you have in hand at the moment. For example, legal advice on endowment land and spatial footprint of that endowment land.
Yeah, I could actually email you the endowment land right now, but that's pretty settled. The legal advice has been pretty settled since 1992. There's certainly no smoke and mirrors for that. It's as we said, it has to be used for the purposes of the Cromwell community. So the legal advice since 1992 supports that. So I'm not quite sure that's what it's going to. It can only be used for the benefit of the Cromwell community. So that's how it's been applied, hence the decision council made around the use of endowment land for the offsetting of the cost increase from the board.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
The only observation I'd make about that particular delegations to community board in terms of that report, all the actions have been complete and it's not on hold from the board's point of view. That report's gone, done, dealt with, and I guess we're going to want to come back in due course. There's no other actions from the resolutions that we made. So I would have said that's actually
not from what came to us on the.
No.
So do you think that should say
closed? Matter closed, because it's closed. The resolutions that have been passed, there's nothing requiring any further action, and then that's been done, that one's closed. Something might happen in the future, but it will come back with a report.
It will come back with a report. It's not the same report that's going to come back as it is.
No.
Table. Anything else there, Tam?
Previously, I've got two small updates for two grant recipients.
Yeah.
The Chinese settlement project has received consent. So that's arrangements for that project, and they will now be fundraising for this next stage, which is fantastic. And the Menchie project is funding and getting some grants. So the community trust is approved the grant, and I think they've been before CRT, but it's great to see those two projects finally making the next steps.
That's great. There'll be some happy members of our community. Super. Righty-ho, that takes us back to page 112 and the recommendation that we received the report. Have it over a second. Thanks, Mary. Thanks, Sarah. All in favour. So takes us to the date of the next meeting, which I think we decided was 18th of June. Sorry, May. Oh, because leaving a long time between meetings, wasn't it? The next meeting is 7th May. And that takes us to page 126 and the resolution to exclude the public. Do I have and there's a B at the bottom of that, which is that Edward Guy from Rationale and Brad McLeod from the Property Group stay for the item 24.3.10 due to their knowledge on the topic as discussed. I think we also have Councillor Nigel McKinley joining us for that too, so can you include him as well? Over and second for moving for those recommendations. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Bob. All in favour? Right, take a moment's break.
I'll join you on the other side.
And on the other side now.